We're starting in real gangster.
Wear my hat backwards.
Yeah, you should. Welcome to the Big Money Stylist Podcast.
Big money.
Hello, Krystal.
Hi.
Good to have you on the show today. We were laughing so hard because today's topic, it's all about being humble. And I was like, hold on. Let's bring this in style and play a little Be Humble.
Right.
So we're all artists here.
Yeah.
Well, on this show we are. If you're listening, you might be an artist. And one of the reasons I started this podcast, I feel like we're like really leaning in. I'm like, hold on. There we go.
There we go.
One of the reasons like I started this podcast probably a couple years ago is I feel like artists feel like they're so alone.
Yeah.
And I had Courtney on the show last week, and I just feel like we always think we're alone. We're like kind of tunnel vision. Everything we're taught in our industry is like so backwards and like so obsolete. And it's interesting to see some of the patterns that hairdressers even new into this industry are like, why are we still doing things this way, right? But artists are notorious for kind of having like an ego about their art, right?
For sure.
Like it's. I mean, I have so many stories of when I first started, but so it was like a topic that we really wanted to talk about because like if you let your ego get in the way, you can only progress so much as an artist. Like you can be the best artist in the room, but guess what? Your art's probably not even as good as you think it is.
For sure. And I think, I do think that like having an ego is important.
Yeah, totally.
To a certain level,
right.
That's how you're going to like do hard things and like push yourself.
Yes,
and like
you have to have enough of an ego to think you can do it. Yeah.
But at the same time, you also have to keep that in check to be like, okay, is this quality good? Am I charging what I'm giving?
Yeah.
Like there's so many things like of this industry that truly are backwards, but I think that as artists, sometimes our egos get so big that we're just like, wow, whatever.
It's the client. It's the client. And I feel like artists, again, like I remember I was teaching a class. This was like back in Surf and Sand days.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there and everyone wants to know like social media tactics and this and that. And I got this like impression that I needed to communicate a different message in this particular class. And I was like, hey, you guys, listen, I know with social media, a lot of you like young artists can build followings quick. Some struggle on the other end of the spectrum, right? Where they're like, I'm not even going to post on social media. I'm so scared. And then there's some that like, they can build followings, they can get clients in the door, and there was kind of this like churn and burn mentality, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you're lucky if you get a spot on my books. And I'm like, okay, first off, reel in the ego. Let's not forget about the client and the client experience, right? Are you making a price increase? Is your overall experience going up?
Yeah, is it matching?
Is it matching it? Or is it just like you have so many DMs flying in that you're like, okay, time to raise my prices? Because if that's the case, you're just going to continue to churn and burn. And to be honest with you, like that doesn't feel that's not like job security. Like, like you're just constantly like filtering through clients, and there's some big names in the hair industry that's got some real shitty Yelp reviews that it's like, we get it, you're popular, but don't you want to kind of like elevate your experience?
For sure.
Right? And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of BS like with reviews and things like that, but there's probably some truth to it too.
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that, for sure.
It's crazy. I remember when I'll share this quick story. When I first started my brand, I was like, I've always really enjoyed doing hair. I felt like I kind of had a knack for it. Yeah. Like I was always proud of my work. I definitely had an ego about it, but I enjoyed doing it, and I love how the clients felt and that kind of thing. And hair extensions is such a big transformation. It's like I've done hair extensions since the beginning of my career.
Right.
So I just loved the transformation. And I remember when I was starting my brand of Natural Beauty Rose, and I remember thinking like, looking online, and I think it was Ramirez Tran or their work came up on Pinterest. I was like, oh, it's phenomenal. It's beautiful. It's lived in. It's totally my vibe. Like I love everything about this. And I'm like, okay, well, I just need to take better pictures. Like this is awesome. Like I can do this. This is super melty. It's beautiful. So then I start like taking photos, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, why doesn't it look like this? So then I started investing in cameras and lighting and all these things. And then I kind of like kept looking at my work, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe my blend is not as good as I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, and I'd been doing hair for 10 years at that point, right? And I was like, okay, it's not, maybe I need to be a better artist. Oh, shit. Like,
what a concept.
I was like, huh. And so it was funny though, but I had to have enough of an ego to start my brand, right? I had 2 kids. I was like, literally, I've shared this story a lot. I was like on the brink of divorce, like bankrupt, selling shit out of my house to make ends meet. And so I had to have enough of an ego to believe in myself as a hairstylist to just go.
Yeah.
And this is like what we taught at our last classes is like people either do one of two things. Like they won't do anything at all. They won't just go. Or like they won't give themselves feedback in order to improve as an artist.
And you stand in your own way.
Totally.
Like I know for me, when I found MBR, I had never done extensions.
Oh, really?
I had never done any extensions. I'd always worn extensions. And so because I had not so great results for myself, wearing like a mix of tapes and bonds on the sides.
Whatever you YouTubed.
You know, all three methods together, I was like, I'm never going to put that on a client. Like, I'm not going to be responsible for that. So I found MBR because I was looking for a solution for myself. I was like, there's got to be better extensions out there.
Right.
And my ego as an artist was like, I don't have to take the class. Like,
I can find
she
somebody.
has so many YouTube videos. I could just watch her YouTube
You're that
videos.
asshole.
I was that asshole. Because I was like, it was a few things. Ego, number one. Also, my mindset wasn't like, yes, I was an artist, and yes, I invested in education, but I had never done extensions, so I only saw value in investing in certain types of education. You know, so I was like, I'll take a cutting class for sure, even though I like really didn't love cutting. It was just something that had been in my wheelhouse and norm for so long that I was on a hamster wheel. And
you were selectively cheap.
Yeah, I was just like, let's just take this haircutting class, even though I don't even want to be doing haircuts, but I guess.
It's so true though. Hair extensions are like, they're such a low standard. It's gotten better, right? But it's like, it's one of the highest paying services, and it's the one thing that's not really offered in hair school. It is as like a certification class, like a 1-day demo.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you spend hours learning cutting and coloring and all these skills, and then with hair extensions, you're like, it's just a low standard. It's just like, hey, can I lean over somebody's shoulder, or why would I pay for that? Because it's not taught as something normal in our industry, right?
Sure. And
that was like one of my goals is like, I'm super passionate about hair extensions. I'm super passionate about education, but we need to up the bar so that we're not all walking around with 5 tapes and 4 glue-ins. Yeah. Did you know when I first started, I actually have learned... I heavily invested only in hair extension education when I first started doing hair.
Yeah.
Because I knew that's what I wanted to do. I always had my hair cut in a bob, and I was told that by my hairdresser, who was my sister.
You could never have long hair.
Yeah, she's like, you could never have long hair. And then she's like, and don't do extensions because they look trashy, and they're like, I've never seen any good extensions.
Right.
And I was like, I'm like, okay, I hear you, but I don't want to wear a bob for the rest of my life. Yeah. And she was right. I went out and I took multiple courses, and I was like literally a science project of extensions going on in my head. But like, that's all I invested in was like hair extension education. But it led me to like with everything I learned. That's why I was like, okay, I'm going to I kind of made my own way of doing it. Yeah. And over time, I had people, I don't think I valued the education that I had put into myself, because in the beginning of my career, and I'm sure we've all been guilty of this, is like somebody's leaning over your shoulder and like, hey, do you mind if I sit and watch you and while you're working on your client? And you're like, yeah, that's fine. But really, you're like, get the fuck out of my space. Like, what is going on?
Why are you here?
Why are you lingering over? And like, why do I feel like now I'm teaching you did you just ask me to pass the needle over? He's just a client.
I'm sure the client feels awkward also.
I literally had people do that when I first moved to California. I had 2 people in my salon, and I just felt so uncomfortable because I was new here.
Yeah.
And they were literally like, oh, so you just take the needle. And they're like, can I try one? I'm like, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's where I started. But honestly, like...
If you were one of Danielle's first clients in California, we apologize.
But it's so true. Like, it doesn't matter what level you get at with your art or even with your business or whatever it is. Like, there's this element of like, okay, you need to reel it back in. I went to this event with Grant Cardone a couple weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago in Florida. And it was like a mastermind of like maybe 50 people. Yeah. But you couldn't pay to get into this. This was like private invite. My husband and I got invited. And it's funny because I feel like I'm in a good place in life and business. And I kind of had this story like, okay, my business is running for me. I can focus on my kids. This is so great. But ultimately, like, I felt like I was kind of selling out, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Like, I was like, I don't think I'm done, but I need to be grateful. I need to be grateful for where I'm at, right? Yeah. And then I went to this event, and I was like, oh, there's so much more. Like, a light bulb went off. I was like, there's so much more I could do inside of my business. I had to take it. I had to kind of like let go of my ego a little bit. And I was joking around with Garrett. I'm like, we're in the back of the room, and I go, babe, we're the poorest kids in the room. Literally. Like, and as they're getting up and like talking about like, you know, like, numbers are flying, and I'm like, wow, the numbers that people are like throwing around in this room, like I made that last year, and I was really pumped about it. Like you made that yesterday, so in one day, like probably in the first morning of your day. That's like amazing. So I kind of had to take this like element of like, God, I not only am I grateful, but like I'm like, okay, it's okay to want more, right? Yeah. Like I think in a way the ego can like, it can push you forward, but it can also be like, you're fine here, you're safe,
totally
right?
Safe, yeah.
So it's like this balance of, I was like, okay, I do need to get back in. There's more people that I believe that we can help with our program, and I want to grow as an individual in this process, which means I kind of have to submit to like, you know what, Danielle, you're not Redkin. You might be one day, but you're not right now. Because in my mind, I was like, I'm fucking Paul Mitchell.
Yeah, I can kick back.
Yeah, I could get. And I'm like, no, I'm not Paul Mitchell yet, but I'm going there. I'm going there. I had to kind of get back into the trenches and do stuff that I haven't done in a few years, like phone consultations.
But that's important too, because now it's like, you feel like you know every aspect of your business, and
totally.
It's really important to stay humble. And sometimes you just need those moments, because I love what you said, that like sometimes like if your ego is too big, it does hold you back from like really the next step.
Right. But then there's moments where you're like, I'm awesome. And it puts you in those uncomfortable places where you're like, well, I'm already here. So now I got to figure my shit out.
For sure.
Like, I think the biggest thing is like, sometimes you just have to like commit and know that you'll figure it out along the way. Like, as crazy as it sounds. And you know what else I feel like when we're coaching, okay, I'm a photo Nazi.
Yes.
Rachel sent me the funniest clip. We taught this class last week, and Krystal's always like so professional, and she's like, and Danielle with her photos, she's a psychopath. I'm like,
no, you were like,
yep,
I
am a psychopath.
Yeah. but again, it goes back to the story you shared in the beginning. It's like, you're like, I refuse to continue to take bad photos. I'm just going to commit to being the best.
I just was like, I got to figure it out. I got to figure it out. I mean, I'm not the best, but I feel like I can pick a pretty damn good headshot. Yes. But it's crazy because like I find like even inside, so in our academy, in our classes, when we teach our business marketing and sales, the most simple concept we can teach artists is daily 4.
Yes.
It's just communicating a message 4 different ways and being consistent and doing it daily. And some days you're going to have like an awesome photo or an awesome message and you're going to hit a home run. And some days you're just going to hit a single, right?
Exactly.
Like, and that's just kind of how it goes. And it's so funny with Daily 4, we have so many students who they'll come to us and say, I'm doing my daily 4 and I'm not getting more leads. And I'm like, okay, well, let me look at your daily 4.
Right.
And I'm like, can you show me, like, I'm going to like go back on your Instagram feed. I'm going to like assess the last like 6 months. And I'm like, okay, I got to be
hitting the mark.
Yeah. I'm like, I got to be honest. You're doing the daily 4 without being intentional about your daily 4.
Yes.
You're doing it to do a checklist. I'm like, I need you to reel in the ego that you're the best fucking artist in the room.
Totally.
Because like, your work's good, but can you put this side by side with one of the top artists in the hair extension industry? I don't care who it is. I'm not even saying like my work, anybody's work. I'm not even saying I think I'm good, but I'm just saying like, can you put it up to somebody's top work and say yours competes with that? And unfortunately, I've had a student say yeah, and I'm like, you're fucking blind. But
exactly.
But really, I was like, God, that's such an ego statement there. I'm like,
and that alone will hold you back.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I don't know how to help you at that point. I was like, I would suggest like really looking inward and find out if you're doing your daily 4, if you're doing it intentional. Is there really no areas that you can improve? Like you're good, because even like I said, even for me, I'm like sometimes there's areas improve that I can't even see what areas I need to improve in until I like jump into the trenches and I'm like, oh guys, this process is not great and that's on me. Like,
right.
And then I think when I take that ownership and responsibility, like people on my team, like you and Katie and Rachel and everybody, like light bulbs go off. They're like, oh, okay, like. Yeah, we didn't want to say anything. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay, how long has this been going on for?
I do feel like we see that a lot with artists, though, especially like inside of Daily 4, because it is such a simple thing that we teach.
Yeah.
And when people's egos get into the way, like I'll hear this time and time again from artists that are close to finishing our 12-month academy program, and they get to a place where they're just like, oh, like I'm not getting leads, I'm not getting, applications, things like that. And so when we go back and we look, and it's
they
so
stop
true.
Marketing.
They stop marketing, and it just becomes this without intention. It's just like they're checking it off.
Yeah.
And it really makes a huge difference in the types of clients that you get to sit in your chair or not. And I feel like, yes, right now, reels are huge. You can reach a lot of people. You can grow your following. And I've seen this happen with artists as well. It's like they're so into just doing those types of things that they have
that is in their comfort.
Have 75,000 followers, but like how many new installs are they getting a
exactly
week? You know, so
well, and I think it like if you have a big following, people are like almost like you don't seem approachable anymore.
Yes,
and you're like, what's your CTA? Like, what are you? Is this like? You just want to show how awesome you are and flip hair around? Like, if you want new clients in the door, because ultimately, like, if you don't have it, like, even if you have a ton of followers, it's surprising, like, how you can have a lot of artists with a lot of followers that are broke.
Oh, for sure.
And you're like, wow. But I think that feeds the ego. Like, you can live in this land of, like, I'm popular, so it's fine. And that's, like, one of those things from the very beginning. I remember when Instagram first, like, hopped up, I was like, why are all these people, like skyrocketing on their followings, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I kept getting the impression that it was like, why do you want the popularity? What are you going to do? I didn't even have the teams or the foundation at the time, right? So I was so stuck on becoming popular, quote unquote, that I finally got to this place where I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter if I got my big shot or if an influencer posted my work or a million influencers posted my work. If I don't have a team and a foundation, like I'm fucked. Then it's just going to be a bad Yelp review, or I can't fulfill on anything that I'm saying that I offer. You know what I mean? So that was a big pivot for me in my career, because I've been doing Instagram since like it first came out. Like I got in like quick. I was like, this is going to take off. I know it's going to be bigger than Facebook. Like even when people were like, what's Instagram? You're not on Facebook. I'm like, Instagram is the new jam. I can promise you that. But then I was so pissed that I wasn't getting more followers. And then I was like, you know what? I can be pissed, or I can work on my hair skills, and I can work on my photography skills, and I can work on my marketing, and I can work on my writing. Like I used to be an awful writer. Like, and then I decided to start a blog. I'm like, I can tell a story. I was like, how can I improve? And so instead of being focused on like the outcome of a following, I was like, what skills can I obtain so that like when I start to pick up momentum, that I have the foundation to support that. Yeah. And I've had so many moments in my career, like I said, where it's like, you're not that awesome, Danielle. Okay. But then it's like a balance of being like, you're awesome and you got this. You know what I mean? Like, seriously.
No, it's true. And it's really important to be that way. And I feel like because we train so many different types, so many different artists, like whether they come into the industry fresh out of beauty school, they've been in like, they just graduated literally 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Or we have artists that have been doing hair for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see the differences of like the patterns and the routines that someone who's been in the industry a long time have.
Yeah.
Versus someone who's like fresh out and they're like, okay, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, they're so eager. They're so eager. I know.
But I think a lot of it is us as artists who have been in the industry for a long time, because I was in 13 years before I found MBR. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know about this. And then once I got it in my head, I was like, okay, I'm all in now. Yeah. But even today as an artist, I still have to take a step back, especially being a coach and a trainer. Like you have to be able to assess your work honestly and say like, I shouldn't have done that with that color, and I try to be very transparent with like the team that I have inside the salon, because we are a training company.
Right.
Like, nobody's at the top. It's not like, I feel like we all can work side by side and celebrate everybody's wins together. And then also be like, hey, like you kind of fucked that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's good, but it's not great. It's so funny though. Like I love that. Like I feel like our team is so solid. Like nobody should ever feel bad. Like nobody should feel superior. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm the best artist in the salon. Like we're a team, right?
Sure.
That's at least how I look at it. And I love when either myself or one of my artists is like, yeah, it could have been better. I'm like, I love that you just like recognize that. Yes. Like even me, I've been doing hair forever, and I like came to you the other day with Bailey's hair. I'm like, I like it. I don't love it. I don't love it. But one of my philosophies in my salon is like work until the job is done. Like if you don't like it and you have time to adjust the color, then do it. Like
for sure.
Work until the job is done. That might be an extra root smudge. That might be an extra toner. To become the best artist, you have to be willing to like admit that you kind of fucked up and then finish the job. I think a lot of times that when color goes south in the salon, it's not because we don't know how to do it. We're trained professionals.
Yeah.
It's either one or two reasons. Either the client got in our head and all of a sudden we're like, oh, she wanted blonde, but you really knew that you couldn't give her blonde and you let her dictate what you wanted the appointment to go. That was your first mistake. Or number two, you don't finish the job. You get panicky and you're like, oh, like you're like, I don't know what to do. You're like, you almost have to like walk away and be like, okay, if this was your girlfriend's hair, if this was your hair and it looks streaky or there's bleeders or whatever it is, like, how are you going to fix this? Calm down.
Yeah.
Like, you can fix this. I was doing my daughter's hair for a class we just did.
Right.
And I chose to do her at the end of a long work day. Like,
big mistake.
I already set myself up for failure. Like, if I'm doing model work, it's fresh in the morning. My brain's on point. I've worked out. I ate breakfast. Like, I'm good to go. I decided to do model work at the end of the day. And
she was kind of a color correction.
It was kind of a color correction. Like, we had used her for Academy convention and things like that. And I'm like, do you ever mix something and you put it on and it goes south and then your brain clicks in. You're like, of course that went south.
Yeah.
What the fuck was I thinking? Of course, I put a 9 on her roots. Of course she's going to have hot roots. Obviously, that's going to happen. Like, that's literally what happened. I put an 8 and a 9 in there, and my goal level was an 8. So why would I add 9? Because it had this beautiful undertone of like, I don't even know. But my brain, like literally after I got done, I'm like, of course we have hot roots. Of course we have hot roots.
Yeah, but you're not just going to, like, it was
But I had to be humble.
You had to be humble and realize, like, this probably isn't the best that it could look. Like, how can I assess this and how can I make this better? Because that's just going to make you a better artist.
The funny thing is like, I was in like implosion mode because it was already like 7 o'clock at night by then. And I was like texting you. I'm like, I need a cigarette. I don't even smoke. And I'm like, I can't do this. And I'm like, I'm just going to revisit this tomorrow when my brain's not fried. It was the easiest fix ever. I smudged her with some shades. It neutralized it. It actually made it more melty. And I was like, I went from being like, it's over to like, okay, calm down. It was like a simple fix. So it's always like a good artist recognizes like, hey, work until the job is done. And that's truly like what I've done to try to become the best in my industry. Like, I consume education, but really that is the biggest thing that's helped me is just feedback for myself and be like, Danielle, it's not great. How could you make this better? Because I've been doing hair for 20 years.
Right.
Like, I know how to fix a problem. It's just because like I shut off my brain and needed to eat dinner and decided to have a long day.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, I got this. Like, it's going to be this. It's going to be that. I'm going to do this. And then when it doesn't turn out, it's like, again, check your ego.
Yeah.
And make sure you can be like, okay, all I need to do is this. I am a trained professional. I know actually how to correct this. Mm-hmm. Just take a step back. And you did. I mean, you were like going, you almost took her brunette. You were going back.
It was a lot of panic in the moment, but it turned out beautiful. Go to the Natural Beauty Rose Instagram. You'll see my cute little 15-year-old daughter. She's a beautiful coppery redhead, and even she was like, "I want to go brown." And then she's like, "I love it." Like all weekend, she was like,
"So good."
Selfies galore. I was like, "Okay, here we go."
Yeah,
but
beautiful.
Even like, I'd love for you to share a little bit of your experience. So Krystal came in as my salon manager. I have to be honest, like, I'm very creative. I'm very driven. I'm not super organized. It's just not a strength. It's not one of my strengths. And as much as I try to be organized, I feel like I'm that person that, like, is always putting duct tape or a Band-Aid on, like, a hole. Right. And then all of a sudden the dam breaks open. I'm like, how did that happen? Because you were just fucking putting Band-Aids everywhere. Like, why are you doing that? And so I knew I needed, and I had too much going on. I was trying to push the brand. I was trying to grow the salon. Like, I was like, I need a salon manager. And I kept trying to put artists in that role of my salon manager instead of trying to hire for a salon manager.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how many of you guys have done that if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, shit, yeah, like I tried to put somebody in a position instead of just hiring out for that position, and then I was confused why it went south. I literally had 3 managers that were hairstylists that I'm like, why is this not working out? And then I can't remember, it was probably Jeff. He's like, why don't you hire for a salon manager? I was like, you're so smart. You're on to something. So Krystal came in. I'd love for you to share, because you had worked at a salon and you kind of like assumed that role of salon manager. So you had some experience, and then you came in, but you kind of like revamped the whole, like, I mean, you could talk about how that, were you like, oh, I got this? And then you came and you're like, this is a big shit show and a mess. Like, share a little bit of your story.
I mean, yeah, I definitely had experience inside of management in another salon prior to coming here. And so I am big on having systems and processes because it just makes everything work together.
Right.
And I would say that was the biggest thing when I came in was there was a whole lot
Of Band-Aids?
there was a whole lot of Band-Aids, not a lot of systems and processes. And it was just a little bit, I would say, chaotic, honestly.
Yeah.
Just because I think there had been other people in the role. And then even then, like, the team was like, okay, well, this person didn't work out.
Right.
That person didn't work out. So I'm sure this girl's not going to work out.
Right.
And so it just, we needed to rip the Band-Aids off and actually put some things in place that were going to stick. And so we did do a lot of, we did implement a lot of systems, even inside of like inventory and organization. And I mean, even years down the road, we're like, okay, we need to remodel the salon because
Right.
we're not utilizing this space properly. And so, but even then, like I always try to, again, as an artist, I'd been involved in hair education prior to coming here as well. And so I think in that role, like you really do have to be humble because again, I never want to be like a dictator and say like these are the rules. Like you want to
Right.
lead by example. And I think once you start to do that, your team really starts to
Respect you.
respect you, but also it just makes it such a happier environment
Right.
for everyone. And there's no like fear of not being able to speak up, and it just becomes a more team environment.
Right.
And so I feel really solid about the team that we have right now. We are actually looking to hire a couple more
Apprentices?
salon apprentices.
Nice.
So if you are a licensed cosmetologist and you're looking
I love
for
the sneaky CDA right now.
if you're looking for an apprenticeship in South Orange County, please reach out to us because we are looking to hire. And we're all about, again, we're an education company.
Right.
So you have to be able to take feedback. And that's
Right.
something that was the biggest thing for me coming here is I got to a place in my career where I worked in a salon that at the time when I started, it was like the salon, all about education, all about continued education. We held classes, we did things, we were a team. And then it just kind of shifted. I mean, it was like 13 years later that it shifted, but I was just,
lost the fire a little bit.
Yeah, and it just became like I was so uninspired and we didn't have a team environment anymore. And so really coming here and being able to establish that
Right.
and really set the tone for how we wanted to move forward has been pretty amazing.
I would say like right now, like our team's pretty solid. I feel like everybody kind of steps up. They lean in when they need to.
Yeah.
And in the past, if anybody had felt like an anchor or I felt like there was like this like kind of pulling back, or it's like, again, the ego of like, hey, I think I'm better than this. I'm not like if you're better than the team, then you don't belong with the team anymore.
Right.
And that's fine.
For sure.
That just means it's time to move on. And there's nothing wrong or bad about that. But I have to operate in a position as a business owner, and I'm sure you as a salon owner, where everybody is so just in it to win it. They're team oriented, they're goal oriented. Then it just helps propel everything forward.
Yeah.
Like you can have one or two people and be like, why are we stagnant? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
And then it's like, if everybody's on the same page, you're going to move further, faster, like together. You know what I mean? Like you can't save people. And I think that's like one of my, I'd say it's like, I always say it's like a pro and a con. Like I love helping people.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful not to be the savior. I have to be the one, I can't be the one like dragging my team. So we even teach this in classes. I'm like, hey, you guys, like we teach one of the concepts, I'm a leader, not a savior.
Right.
This can go with, your clients, like with hair extensions, like sometimes we want to save them. We feel so bad. They have, scary hair, fried off hair. And we want to be the one that fixes it. But it also can go internally in your team members where you're like, come on, I want you to see my vision.
Yeah.
To where you don't maybe understand like the stress that they're causing you. And a lot of times it might be like just avoiding conversation, right?
Definitely.
I feel like women are so guilty of they're like, I'm a people pleaser. I'm like, no, you're a conflict avoider and you don't want to have this tough conversation with your assistant or whoever it is, and you're dragging them along trying to save them, but really it's just time to let them go.
Yes.
Like, and I feel like you're really good at that. Like I've gotten better at it because I'm always like, no, like let's give them another shot. And when you first started working for me, there was people that probably stayed far too long because I was like, no, they're going to turn a corner. Like, because I just like loved them as individuals and like they were just fun and whatever it was. But you're like, Danielle, this is an anchor to your business. Like, you have to let it go. And I feel like you've gotten better now at like voicing it sooner to me. And I kind of trust you. And I'm like, okay, I believe you. If you say it's time to go, then it's time to go. Let's do this, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's for sure a skill that comes with just growth and understanding. Like it's no negative feelings. It's just a hard conversation that needs to be had. And you can't save people. And that's something like being here and really learning like our values and our core values, what we teach in our teams, but also like what we teach to other artists inside of our education. And it's so true because at the end of the day, like I talk to artists all the time, and at the end of the day, like the stress and the weight of
is not worth
having an anchor on your team is not worth it at all.
Yeah, even if they eventually turn it around, you're like, you've been tolerating this in your relationship with this person for far too long, and you cannot save them. And then you have to recognize the signs before it actually happens. Again, like going back to this event that I was at with Grant Cardone, and he said, if somebody quits, I didn't fire them quick enough. And I was like, I love that. Truly, I'm like, if somebody quits, they should have been gone a long time ago. And I feel like you and I have gotten good at recognizing those signs. And we're like, okay, we have to nip this in the butt before this takes out 4 other team members with it. A virus is going to just keep growing.
For sure.
So we got to take this out now. And it's not personal, it's business.
Yeah.
And so I just love that he said that. I was like, oh, I love that. Because it helped validate decisions that I had made that I kind of felt bad. You know, I was like, oh, should I have let him go? Should I have not? And then I'm like, no, I have to be firm with my decision. I know this was the right decision. It was sticky for a minute, but it could have been a lot stickier had I waited, right?
Right.
So anyways, you guys, I do think that one of the biggest things to really excel in your career, whether you're an artist or you're just listening to this, is honestly like you have to take a step back to use the ego to your advantage.
Yeah.
And understand that's okay, but don't get stuck in the ego. Like have moments of like humility where you're like grateful where you're at, but you strive to be more. There's certain words where people say, well, I'm grateful. Well, are you grateful and you're stuck? Are you grateful to give you an excuse not to grow? Are you humble? That was another thing too, is I felt like I had gotten to this place where I was like not promoting as much because I was like, oh, I don't need to promote. I don't need to do Daily 4. I'm going to do this shit. Now I'm like on my stories every day. I'm like, hey guys, we got another class coming up. It's awesome. You should join us. I'm like, I can't be in that place where I'm like, I'm just being humble. Like, no, like I'm a promoter. Like I love what I do. I know it changes people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, why would I not share this? And I think I got stuck in this story of like, I don't want to over promote. Like my students need to over promote, but I'm good where I'm at. And that was false. I was like, no, I need to continue to push and promote.
Yeah.
But final words, Krystal, on be humble.
I would say just make sure that you stay humble and often look at your work, assess your business, assess your teams, assess yourself. And honestly, that is the only way to keep growing, because if your ego gets in the way, you're just going to stay stuck, and pretty soon you're going to be such an asshole that you're going to stay stuck and you're going to be alone.
You don't even know. If everyone's the asshole, chances are you're the asshole.
It's you.
All right, you guys, stay tuned to another episode of The Big Money Stylist, where again, we're doing these every Tuesday. We offer 2 forms of education right now. We have our MBR virtual experience, which is learning natural beat row hair extensions. Go figure out all about that. Talk to your friends, all that good stuff. But we also introduce some of the business marketing and sales inside of this 2-day course. This is our introductory course to learning natural beat rows. But we also have a 12-month academy program. This is really what we're so passionate about, because this is where we have seen artists' lives change, like doubling and tripling their income, where it's like if you triple someone's income, it truly changes the trajectory of where their life is going, who they impact. So we are very passionate about that. Those are the 2 offers that we currently have with education. Go to nbr.education to find out more. We have an October event coming up. We'd love to see your smiling, happy face if you have a cosmetology license. All right, you guys, that's it for today, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.